What is devil's contract? I want to discuss the application form, like when you fill out an application for a certificate of title or for your driver's license. But we're going to talk about this one today. The acknowledgement of paternity form. Now, this is a typical unilateral contract where you don't sit down and negotiate the terms of the agreement. And see, the Commonwealth has bestowed upon itself no affirmative duty to make disclosure. They don't add a list of definitions, because how you use the word doesn't mean that's how it's used on the paper. And like most people, they don't read, they just sign. Big mistake. So let's talk about this acknowledgement of paternity form. Down here in the block where the parents sign, this top one here is for the mother, this one here is for the father. But I want to show you a quirk here. When the mother signs, she says, "my child." That the father, that the above named sign is the father of my child. And then the father gets to say, he's the father of the child. Well, the correlation between the two words, the father is handing over default custody. Well, the matter of custody was already predetermined before the woman even got pregnant. This form was already sitting on a shelf somewhere. It was pre-adjudicated. There are a lot of sugar-coated terms. They call it child support. It's actually damages. This form is an affidavit for the father, and the mother, she's signing as the informant. It's a bill of indictment. When the father signs, he's signing that he's guilty of quasi-rape. And then for the next 18 years, he's on parole, and he has to pay damages. What I mean by parole, if he doesn't pay damages called child support, they could toss him in jail. They can revoke his freedom. He's allowed to stay free so he can get a job and his paycheck can be garnished. I mean, in the fine print up here, where it says claim of paternity, right here, it says a claim of paternity does not give any rights to the man. It's another interesting word. Well, why use the word man? How come they didn't use the word father? If I was to sign this form, I would turn it into a bilateral contract. And how is that done? This word man, I would cross that out and put father. And the word does not, I cross out the word not. Then, in this block here, instead of where I sign says the child, I cross that out and I put the word my. And then this word understand, I cross that out. Because that word understand, it's a bastardized word. It means you stand under. Are you submitting to the authority of this bureau? So you could turn a unilateral contract into a bilateral contract by changing some words. Because after the father who signs in his block, when he signs in, all these words become his words. So, I don't like a word, you change it. See, the acknowledgement of paternity form was rendered obsolete in 1974 because the supportive legislation was repealed, the bastard child doctrine and the fornication law. Prior to 1974, there was a guy and a girl in the back seat parking, doing the nasty. Police officer seized them. That was a criminal offense. It was some offense. It was a crime. The one analogy I have is the word tree. If legal fruit comes from a married tree, and then illegal fruit comes from an unwed tree, well, if all the fruit is now legal, then the marital status of the tree is irrelevant. See up here, for a child born to an unmarried woman. This word unmarried, cross that out. Marital status doesn't mean anything anymore. If the child is a legal child at birth, then the marital status of the mother or father means nothing. As mentioned, this acknowledgement of paternity form, which is actually a bill of indictment, was rendered obsolete in 1974 when the supportive legislation was repealed, namely the bastard child doctrine and the fornication law. The same way as in 1934 when the vehicle code, which was issued to police officers, a field manual, was no longer an administrative crimes code, because it was no longer a crime just to have a rule infraction. But now, getting back to this so-called acknowledgement of paternity form, its companion is the marriage license. Now we have to go back to the days of the Catholic Inquisition. Well, you had the Protestants and other factions that were threatening the power of the Catholic Church. So it was the Catholic Church that invented the marriage license, because they wanted to breed out their opposition. To get a marriage license, you had to tell the priest that you promised that you were going to raise your children Catholic. So they didn't care what you believed. They were going to breed your ideas out of existence, because they were going to brainwash the child to think as a Catholic. Now, this acknowledgement of paternity form was a way to confiscate children. If a woman that wasn't married and she had a child, well, having a child out of wedlock was a crime, so you cannot reap the rewards of a criminal act. So a bastard child was contraband, could be seized. This form was also beneficial to the nobles, to protect their titles of nobility and their money and their land. If a noble got a young peasant girl pregnant, well, that doesn't count. That child, like labeling the child as a bastard child, that child couldn't be heir to titles of nobility, land, or the privilege of the upper class. This was a sweetheart deal. So this acknowledgement of paternity form, in conjunction with the marriage license, benefited both the nobles and the Catholic Church. It was a way to keep everybody Catholic and to protect the monetary interests of the nobilities, to keep the nobles and the peasants separate. So the devil's contract, that's application forms. Your application for certificate of title, for a driver's license. And because the fine print is missing, a list of definitions is missing, they expect you to be dumb and stupid and just sign on the dotted line. Well, this all comes into play with at the traffic stop. And it's how you sign when the officer presents the citation. It's how you sign it. I recommend that you you have to sign agent of, under duress, and you're on the margin no contract. Because as I'm explaining in another video, that how you're going to throw a wrench in your gearbox is that during the traffic stop, if it was just a plain Jane rule infraction, like not using return signals, not coming to a complete stop at a posted intersection, that if no other charges were attached, such as reckless driving, There was no property damage or injury, no accident. There was no imminent threat to life or limb. It's not like you almost ran over a pedestrian or they had to jump out of the way. So in that situation, that scenario, you tell the officer that you are accepting the liability upon the condition that the officer surrender the original citation, therefore he's actually serving you with the liability. But the officer giving you a copy, he's not serving you liability. And I mean, that would be like your paycheck. When you get a paycheck, well, what would you think if your employer handed you a copy of a paycheck? What are you going to do with that? You can't take it to the bank and cash that. But these double contracts are everywhere. And as I mentioned, the Commonwealth has no affirmative duty to make disclosure, but upon demand, an agent of the state must articulate intent, or otherwise they could be ruled incompetent.